All right, niños, today we are learning about reflexive verbs. I am not able to be with you today, and quite a few students are gone today too for Aspire testing, for a government trip, for student council, lots of reasons to be gone today, and I wanted everyone to have equal access to the notes, so this seemed like the best way to do it. There's information on the slides, and as we go through it, feel free to pause the video and jot the notes down at your own pace. Rewatch the video if you need, and if I give you any additional information that's not actually typed on a slide, be sure to jot that down as well. So let's get started. What is a reflexive verb? It is used for when saying that someone is doing something to or for themselves. So it's just an action that you do to yourself. For example, washing your hands, brushing your hair, an action that you do to yourself and that usually someone else does not do to you, that you don't do for someone else. An example would be, antes de una cita, siempre me ducho y me arreglo el pelo. So here we have two reflexive verbs conjugated in the sentence. We have me ducho and we have me arreglo. So we're going to talk about how to conjugate those in a minute, but let's talk first, how do we know if a verb is reflexive? It will end in say, and you have a whole bunch of these in your notebook, and you may have thought, well, those kind of look like infinitives, but they end in something different. That's right. They are still AR, ER, or IR verbs. It's right there. These all happen to be AR verbs. They just end in say, and the say is only there to tell you that they are reflexive verbs. So let's take a quick quiz to see if you can figure out which verbs are reflexive and which ones aren't. Okay, hopefully you were able to figure out which verbs were reflexive and which were not. Now let's talk about what reflexive pronouns are. Reflexive pronouns go in front of a normally conjugated verb to show that it is still reflexive. So you have 6 options. The bottom 2 are the same. You have me, te, se, nos, os, and se. So these 2 are the same. Each one goes with a different subject. So you conjugate your verb normally. There's nothing crazy going on. You're just putting one of these in front of it. So let's see an example. Jot this down too. So this is the verb arreglarse, which means to fix or arrange. Like usually people talk about arreglarse el pelo, like to fix your hair. So I would just conjugate it normally. Look, if you don't look at the word in front, if you just look at arreglo, arreglas, arregla, etc., there's nothing weird about that. That's just a normally conjugated verb. All we are doing is putting one of these in front of each one. So instead of arreglo, we now have me arreglo, and all that's doing is showing that it's an action that you are doing to yourself or that someone else is doing to him or herself. So me arreglo, I'm arranging my own hair. Te arreglas, you're fixing your own hair. Se arregla, she is fixing her own hair, etc. Again, if you need to pause at any time, feel free to pause the video. One additional thing to know is that you have a couple new shoe verbs on this list. So we just finished going over all those shoe verbs. There are more shoe verbs in the world, and you have a few new ones in Chapter 2a. Acostarse, which means to go to bed. That O changes to a UE. So for example, the yo form would be me acuesto, the to form te acuestas, etc. Despertarse changes from E to IE. So this E, remember we count, don't worry about this when we're thinking about counting back. When we're talking about counting back 2 letters, we go 1, 2. So this E changes E to IE. So the yo form would be me despierto, which means I wake up, as in like I wake myself up. And you wake up would be te acuestas, or te despiertas, etc. Then vestirse changes E to I. So again, when we're figuring out which letter, we don't worry about this last part. There's also only one E, so that's helpful. That just changes to an I. So the yo form would be me visto, I get dressed. And then ponerse, this is just a reminder that poner in the yo form is pongo. So poner means to put or place. Ponerse, when it's reflexive, it means to put on. Okay, this will not affect any of your assignments today, but it is an important part of knowing reflexive verbs. Talking about reflexive and non-reflexive verbs. So some verbs can be used both ways. Some verbs that you've already learned, we can change them to make those reflexive. For example, you've seen the word lavar, it means to wash. So we can say, lavo el coche cada semana. I wash the car every week. Okay, great. That's not reflexive because it's not an action that you're doing to yourself. But we can take this same verb, lavar, to wash, and make it reflexive. Me lavo la cara, I wash my face. So all I have done is add me to the front, and lavo and me lavo mean different things. They both mean I wash, but they're saying I'm washing different things because the me is specifying that it's an action that I'm doing to myself. Another example is despertar, which means to wake up. Despierto a mi hermana por la mañana. There's no reflexive pronoun in front. There's nothing here. So that means this is not a reflexive action. This is a verb that's on your reflexive list, but if there's no reflexive pronoun in front, then it's not a reflexive action. So what this says, despierto a mi hermana. My sister is receiving the action. It says, I wake up my sister in the morning. I'm not waking myself up, I'm waking up my sister. In contrast to that, if I want to say I wake myself up, look, all I did was add me to the front. Me despierto a las 7. That's I wake myself up. Okay, so this last piece of information is important because I've told you so far that you put your reflexive pronoun before your conjugated verb. You can always do that, but there is one other option when you have a sentence with a conjugated verb and an infinitive. We talked about those on Friday, and so if you run into one of those, you actually have two options for how you write your sentence. You can put the reflexive pronoun either before the conjugated verb, as we've discussed, or you can attach it to the infinitive. You will always be right if you put it before the conjugated verb, but you also have the option, if there's an infinitive present in the sentence, to put it there. I'll show you a couple examples. These two sentences mean exactly the same thing. Me voy a duchar and voy a ducharme. Notice this piece of the sentence, voy a duchar is exactly the same thing, but I took me, which normally goes in the front of the sentence, and I have the option of sticking it on the back of the infinitive. So it looks kind of weird. One other example, te tienes que cepillar los dientes and tienes que cepillarte los dientes. You have to brush your teeth. Okay. Te. Same sentence, exactly the same sentence. I've just moved where I put the reflexive pronoun, and you have the freedom to do that only if there is an infinitive in the sentence. Notice here, this phrase is I am going to take a shower. So it's a verb formula, it's a verb phrase, just like we talked about in Spanish 1 and we talked about on Friday. Here, this is a tener plus que plus infinitive phrase. So if the infinitive is included, you are welcome to add your reflexive pronoun on the end. If it's not a sentence with an infinitive in it, you don't have this option. Okay, so for your assignment today and for this next section, this will not come into play. I just wanted to show you this to show you that that is a possibility. Okay, I have some examples for you, so I want you to write down 1 through 10, and I would like you to try each one of these. I need you to pause the video, and if you want to work with a partner on this, that would be great. But give it your best shot to do 1 through 10 here, and then press play again once you are ready to see the answers. Okay, I hope you actually did it instead of just waiting for me to give you the answers. That would not help you at all. Ducharse, this is to take a shower. In the form of ella, you would need se ducha. Despertarse, in the form of él, would be se despierta. He wakes up, and it's he wakes himself up. Cepillarse los dientes, in the form of nosotros, would be nos cepillamos. Prepararse, in the form of tú, te preparas, you get ready. Ponerse maquillaje, to put on makeup, in the form of ellos, would be se ponen. Secarse, in the form of yo, me seco. That's I dry off, like I dry my hair. Acostarse in the form of tú. Te acuestas. You go to bed. Vestirse in the form of ustedes. Se visten. They, or you all, you all get dressed. Remember, on several of these, we have shoe verbs. So don't let that throw you off. Afeitarse in the form of yo, that means to shave. Me afeito. And cortarse el pelo in the form of usted would be se corta. He or you formal, cut your hair. Okay, so please be working diligently for the remainder of the hour. I hope that this has been helpful. If it is still confusing, there are more notes on page 80 in your book that can perhaps give you some clarity, or there are plenty of people in your class who you can ask for help if you need it. Thank you, and I will see you soon.